Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Good clap.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is your boy, Trizzy E Baby, Troy Ewers. This is the Content Magazine podcast. I am your host, and my guest, a person that I've known since my freshman year of high school. Mm-hmm. We both went to Oak Grove High School. Eagles stand-up, OG,
Yep.
you know.
Real South.
Real South. This guy has been on the literal come-up since his inception. He is a person who preaches entrepreneurship, preaches ownership, but also preaches a sense of collaboration like no other. He is the head of EMLN. He is the man who is a producer of Any Given Bars, one of the big front runners of the Culture Night Market, BQ, Brandon Quintanilla. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. And that was an awesome introduction. I appreciate that, man.
Man, it's well-deserved. It's well-deserved. I've seen you from high school as a football guy who was the nice dresser. You know what I'm saying? He was the fancy dresser.
He likes to dress up.
But can handle his business on the field anytime he was called on.
Yup.
Then after high school, you were not just a social guy we would, see at a party here and there. But no, you were the dude who was always grinding, always had a job in some fashion.
Yep.
And then built EMLN out of a garage. For those who don't know, because I can go on for days, introduce BQ.
So you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, just introduce yourself. Okay. Tell them who you are and how you got here.
Okay. So my name is Brandon Quintanilla. Everyone calls me BQ for short. Just like you said, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a resident in San Jose, California, South Side to be exact. That's my section. And I'm a Nicaraguan American. Born and raised in San Jose. And I'm just trying to be a leader in this community and trying to lead by example, by demonstration, by producing events, activating public spaces for small business owners, artists, musicians, and just bringing people together through the Culture Night Market. I'm very passionate about media production. I like to be behind the scenes. I like to play around in front of the camera. I like to just be involved with media. I just really enjoy that industry, as it's been a long journey since we started. As you mentioned, we were in the garage, so it's been a long time coming, but there's still a lots of things to grow into, so.
And going back to those days in the garage, what motivated you to start EMLN? And you had a plan from the beginning. Where did that inspiration even start? And kind of what is the inkling of it all?
It started from being around other people that were entrepreneurs, like working in cell phone sales. Like I worked with a lot of great salespeople. The thing that was really unique about it is like it started at Eastridge Mall. You got all the different walks of life, all the diverse people that come into this space. It might be a mall job for someone outside in, but like when you go into the sales game, like you're basically committing to a whole like structure, like a whole lifestyle, because like in order to be a good salesman, you got to be sharp, you got to be presentable.
And there's some real hustlers in that environment too.
And it's not just like a selling, doing a transactional thing at Safeway or being at Target or something. It's like you're going out of your way to close people that don't know who you are. It's like cold sales, you know what I'm saying? So it was also a rude awakening though, like because I wasn't really that like I wasn't able to communicate the way I communicate now in the beginning. But yeah, just being surrounded by those people at an early age. I was 18 years old when I got my first job. So when I it was my first legal job. It was my first legal job. And the owner of the company, it was a third party franchise. So he owned 32 stores in the whole Bay Area.
Wow.
And he's from San Jose, so he would be at our locations often. And I didn't really get to know him right away in the beginning. It was kind of just like from afar, I knew who he was. But then eventually, after a year being into the game, I was probably one of the better salespeople. And, in any company, when you do well, like you build good rapport with people in management. So I got to kind of ask questions and see how they managed their business. And then then eventually we would go out to eat and then have random conversation. I talk to them about football. I'm like, I'm trying to go to the league. I'm trying to go play for Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing inside me before entrepreneurship. I still had that in me. But when they kind of had that same mentality, but it was in business, it kind of just got my curiosity going.
Became a shift.
Yeah, just seeing how people could still be I don't know how to explain it. Just the ability to go all in on something and it's performance based, right? Like you do well in business, you're going to reap the benefits of the success. And you don't really get that from a salary job or a job, working a 9 to 5, because, you get capped, how you work 40 hours, you're going to get that amount of money.
Stop there.
But when you're creating a business from the ground up, you have to, you don't see those benefits until the long run. Mm-hmm. And, kind of seeing how he got to 32 stores was like, how did you do this,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it started, just being around those people and asking questions. And then that's what kind of sparked my interest to entrepreneurship. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just the very introduction to it.
No, it's a great introduction to it, because where you take EMLN at that point when you started it was almost this different way of selling clothes.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this is a brick and mortar store. It was you're pulling up with a bunch of brands to other places, pulling up, doing your own pop-ups.
Yeah.
And selling the gear.
Yeah.
That's a different type of hustle. I don't think a lot of. Where did you get the sense of I have to grind? Again, the sense of the name even.
Yeah.
Early mornings, late nights.
Yeah.
Where did that mentality come from? Because it seems so ingrained in you, even at this point.
Yeah, I think playing sports was definitely the main reason, just because in sports it's discipline, accountability, hard work, dedication. So those were already kind of instilled in me since young. Played sports since before middle school.
Especially the kind of football environment that we come from, that Oak Grove, Pop Warner environment where you're working all summer. You're barely seeing your friends because your friends are on that team. I see what you're saying.
So it's instilled already, and as I got older, I like I said, I started just becoming more self-aware, asking questions. One of my mentors at the sprint game, his name is Frankie Santiago. He was actually a freelance person working with us.
I was just going to ask you about him.
Yeah, so he was freelance, and he just happened to do B2B for the owner. So he wasn't working for him technically. They were a partner. It was a partnership. But he was showing me I'm getting $8,000 commission checks. And I'm just like, whoa, how the hell are you doing this? He's like, I'm closing $40,000 deals with big companies and stuff like that. So I was just that caught my interest already.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was also managing his own business, which he was selling bed sheets, wholesale and selling them. But he was so aggressive with it. He was I don't even know how to explain. He was on some Grant Cardone, Gary Vee kind of shit. But he was telling me he was simplifying everything. Whatever most people would complicate in entrepreneurship, getting permits, getting guidelines, doing this. He was champ, it's not that hard. The same way you go to In-N-Out to get a burger, you can go to City Hall and get your LLC, get your sole proprietor. And I was I just never heard anyone say that. So it's just and then one time I asked him, I was like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. How do I do it? And then he's he laughed at me at first. He was just you really want to know? For real? He's all right. The first step is grow some balls. And keep in mind, I don't really have a good relationship with him like this. I just know who he is. So when he told me that, I was kind of disrespected. What the fuck you just say to me? Grow some balls. What you trying to say? But
you're that's not the advice I was looking for.
and he just turned around and just kept it lit. He didn't even keep talking to me. That's all he said. He turned around. And I was like, what the hell? But then following that, I followed up again, and then he was he said the same thing, but he's all right, this is what you do. You got to get your business license, you got to get your seller's permit, and then you got to get your domain. Those are the first 3 things he told me to do. And then he's once you get those things, come back and talk to me. So I did that. I already knew I had a bunch of names written out, and EMLN happened to be one of them. Okay. So I went forward with just going that route. And I got the domain, EMLNexclusive.com. I got the license, EMLN, with the city of San Jose. And then I got the seller's permit because I was doing clothes. And then when I got back, I was all right, I got it. And then he's all right, you already did half the job. The other half of the job, you got to go work. And then at that point, I was just all right, damn, I'm really doing this. So fast fast forward, and it's interesting because EMLN's media company now, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I was selling clothes. Like I was really into fashion and really into streetwear fashion. So I just kept thinking about a business right now won't survive without capital. So like in order for me to get to like the bigger brand and the bigger vision, I needed money. So the only way I was going to be able to do that was like, all right, let me get some product. Let me go sell it. And then I met my other friend. I forgot his name right now. It's slipping my mind. But he told me about consignment, which is just basically getting something fronted and then paying it afterwards. Yeah. So, and people do that with shoes all the time. You know, they get like the high-end sneakers, you bring it at a store, and if the store sells it, they get a cut. But
they do it with drugs too.
Yeah, exactly. They do. But yeah, so basically he explained to me what consignment was, and I didn't have money to start the business. Yeah. So I was like, all right, let me pitch consignment to all these brands. And long story short, I got like 5 different brands to agree to do consignment, and they all gave me like 20 to 50 pieces of their brand. Yeah. So now I have like all this merchandise, so I had something to start. Yeah. So now it was about hustling. And then I worked at Sprint, so obviously I had limited hours, and Eastridge Mall had this like vape cafe spot down the street, and it happened to be the owner's like little side hustle.
I remember this place.
So he just had like he just had it. And so people used to go kick it there, and it was smart because this guy literally owns a business down the street that people that work for him make money for him. They go chill there afterward, go buy beer and go buy vapes and go do all that stuff.
Before I used to, it's wild you say that. Before I used to hang out in the garage when you started it. Yeah. Me and Henry we used to go to that vape cafe just to kick it because
it was pretty lit.
You know, there might be some girls there. You can chill, like play Jenga. Like, it was always just like a kick it.
And it was
spot.
in the cuts too. I mean, it was like nobody would know it was there unless.
And you could stay there for hours.
Yeah, it was there like
you could be there damn near till 2 or 3 a.m. if they let you. Like it was a really low key spot.
One of them low key spots. And so I do the owner, because it was like a co-owner, and it wasn't the main owner of Sprint. It was this other guy named Ray, Panamanian Asian dude, crazy, but he's super smart. He's Asian, but he's fluent in Spanish, and he speaks better Spanish than me and like some other people I know.
What?
It's crazy. There's a lot of folks like that are like Asian but live in other countries, and they have like way thicker accents.
No, salute to them. I barely know my language now that I grew up on.
Yeah, so shout out Ray though. He's
so cool.
He's a really dope entrepreneur too, and met him a long time ago. But yeah, so he let me do the store in the vape cafe. Oh, okay. So I basically took a counter, and he would ask me to give him a percent. So I was able to negotiate with him a percent. So I didn't even pay anything. So I'm starting a business without paying any money. I got product for free. I got the storefront for free. And now I'm just like doing the sweat equity. I'm just putting the brand out, telling people come out.
It's like your mentor said. And you did all the groundwork. Now do the work, do the blood work.
Yeah. And then there was my birthday was coming up, and then this was the perfect time to leverage like my, I don't want to say clout, but just like my influence with the community. Like people know who I am. A lot of people will fuck with me. So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to throw a EMLN launch party on my birthday. So I'm just going to leverage my birthday. And then I was charging at the door, then I was, I think I made like, it wasn't a lot. It was like $900, but it was like for, at the time I was like $900, so I'll take that any day.
That was,
you know what I mean?
That was
like
sweet right there.
Yeah. So that was like my first my taste of like doing it on my own and entrepreneurship. But that's literally like the very beginning though, like the very beginning.
And so to transition into when media became, because that's when I was brought in and my friends were brought in.
Yes.
And to see what you were starting, because that was the first podcast and where it kind of was beginning. What made you kind of shift into a media realm? Considering that by the point I got in, you were 2-3 years deep on EMLN, selling clothes, and you were doing well. Like you were establishing a staff, if you could honestly say, and establishing an office. Again, scaling up everybody. Yeah. What made you say, now I got to bring on a media team? Yeah.
Big shout out to my mentor, Anthony Olivera, founder of Outsource Plug out here in San Jose.
Salute to you.
And it's crazy because his come up story is insane too. Because he used to live right here on Santa Clara Street, that building right across City Hall. Not Miro, that's the super nice one. I'm talking about the one that's like, you know, I'm talking about like it's gutter, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so he was living there as a single father, and he had his son, and he was running his business at the time. Wholly completely different business, but I always came to him for advice, and plus he's Nicaraguan, so just off the strength off of the culture, we're just like, we already connected,
You know, each one teach one.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like always going to him for advice, and he would bring me up to his apartment and like give me these books. Or, like sometimes I would just like shadow him and what he was doing, you know. But one time he's the one that put me on Gary Vee in the very beginning, like in 2015. And I know a lot of people get tired of Gary Vee at this point in time because he's just like the only one doing it this long every day. Like it gets kind of annoying after a while, right?
And real quick, he's the only one out of all this who doesn't have like a scam trial at the end of it. Like
the only one that was real,
and that's why
like,
they get mad. They're like, we was hoping you was a scammer early, and you're just still doing great things. So
exactly, pioneering essentially. And so he was the first one to put me on. When I first heard his voice, I was all like, damn, I can't even listen to this whole talk. It was like listening to RFK talk right now. You know what I mean? I was just like, can't listen. But he actually started growing on me. Basically, the thing he told me, like, he gave me his book. He's like, here, read this book. This book's good. I forgot the name of the book. I think it was Jab, Jab, Right Hook. But he gave me the book, and he was like, the key for the next 5 years is going to be content. Like, you need to put content out. And this is like, I'm talking about no one was doing content.
No,
we were doing it like,
no,
with the intention we were doing it, no one was doing it like that.
I was honestly only doing it because we were making, this is when I worked in music, we were in a studio every day. So I was like, I should do a podcast. And you, like you just said, you saw media. And so you not only said, I'm going to do a podcast, where you were really early is, no, videotape it.
Yeah.
So that's where you had your photographer holding the camera. You had a 2-camera setup. Me, on my early days of engineering, I was not good. But we were on the early essential, and you had a set. That was another thing. Nowadays, I get when it comes to podcasting, everyone has a set. You were like, no, we have this painted wall that took hours. Days.
Castro.
Days essentially. A full-on EMLN sign, 2 cameras. It's one thing to do content. Why such the high quality so early?
Well, it's crazy because I mean it's subjective, right? Someone might say like it's high quality. Another person might be like, oh, this is like ground level, because we were doing it with like.
I'm saying high quality for the fact that it was ground level.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Yes, I see what you're saying. I think it was like I wanted to make sure when people came in, they really felt like, oh shit, there's something going on.
Yes,
there was that element, and also when my guests come, I want them to feel like, oh, I'm valued, like. This is for real, you know? So it was a lot of psychological kind of like approach to it, just because I wanted to make sure that not only did it impact people that consumed it, but it impacted people that were surrounded by it, you know what I mean? And that's why I felt like we were able to build such a good like culture, because people were excited to do things, you know what I mean? And I think that's the whole purpose of doing this to begin with, right? Is like, I want to make sure I have fun doing this. And it goes back to what you asked earlier, like, you know, why am I even doing this? Like, I love this shit. You know what I mean? Like, I think to answer your question about the quality stuff, it was really that. Like, I just wanted to make sure it felt good, and when people came in, they were ready to unfold, unpack all what they were going to talk about, you know?
Nah, that's dope.
Yeah.
I eventually left, and you not only kept going, you kept going through one of the hardest times in the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were EMLN through a pandemic.
Yeah.
I went through a whole job shift through a pandemic.
Yeah.
So the fact that you not only barreled through again, one of the hardest times in the world, you came out with bigger things.
Yeah.
What was your mentality through that, you know, as an entrepreneur? Because it was hard for everyone, but especially people who were making their own businesses. I mean, we see it all the time. There are restaurants who did not last.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Because we'll eventually get to what the other side of that tunnel became, but explain just that dark side of it.
Man, it's crazy because there's like a whole build up to it, right? Like before we even got to like to start attacking it. Like I was working, so my shout out to my other mentor, Timmy Noeha. He's like a really good friend of mine. He's always been training us in football and also just putting me on business stuff and business tips and insights. And I would go to him for just a bunch of advice. And he was like putting me on game early. Like this is like before the pandemic. It was like 2019. Like he was telling me, like this is like end of my sales career at like the phone thing. And he's like bro, you need to like start selling tech. Like you need to apply this to the big dollars. He's like, you're wasting your time with this shit. Like he was just so adamant, but I was so stubborn and I just did not like agree with him, because I think what his whole push was like to do the tech, which I wasn't against, but it was the type of sales, which is honestly, now looking at it like today, it is probably the most best skill to attain, which is like cold outreach, right? Like cold calling people with a phone you don't know, emailing them, doing sequences, and doing that to like high level executives, to CEOs, to people like that own $1 billion companies all over Silicon Valley, across the nation. Like these are the type of companies that he was trying to get me to like.
And I think
trying to see that.
And I think one thing he saw in you, because you've been that guy.
Yeah.
I have no problem giving a business card to. When you were at the pop-up shops, you walked up to everybody like, hey, you've been to this table yet? Because you've been to every other table. And I think what he saw in you was, if you can do that to the average 9-to-5 person, the average street hustler, the average anything, shoot, I've seen you in the hoods of Oakland convincing people to do his show. Like, really, like, people say DJ Khaled does that with rappers. Yeah. Like, he'll go to their home and, like, get them to do a verse. Yeah. You did that on every level. And I think that's what he saw for you to do with tech people. Like, pull up on these guys.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's definitely a lot of truth. And it's so funny, Troy, because, like, you're the only one that could really tell this story, bro, for real, because you've seen it. And
that's why I had to have you on.
No, for sure.
You are a person who has not only an amazing story, it's a story that I think if any kid who's 16 saying, man, I got $1 and a little bit of a dream, they can make it into actually something, because I saw it. So that's where.
So, like, Timmy was trying to put me on to the whole cold outreach, and there was a time period where he was running his marketing company that he was starting at that time, and he got me involved. He's like, hey, look, just work with me. I'll have you do this. So he was basically training me how to do cold outreach, but, like, at his apartment. Like, he would took me to the west side. We go to his apartment, and he was making me do it. I was like, bro, I ain't gonna, but I came in with an open mind, though, because it was just me and some other person, and you know, I eventually was like, I was done with it for a certain time period. I did it for a couple months, and I was just like, I couldn't do it. And then I just stopped, you know, entertaining it. And then, and this is just funny how the world works, right? A full circle moment. Then I kept doing the EMLN stuff, you know, doing the working at the cell phone game and doing the EMLN stuff. And then I would network. I would go to all these events and stuff. And I remember Mr. Jones, shout out to Mr. Jones, the principal at Oak Grove High School. He was always looking out, always trying to like put me on stuff. And he told me about this networking event that was happening on the west side. And it was the same day I was going to go meet up with Ziggy and go connect with him for the first time, like just to go meet him. So I vlogged it actually. That same day. I went to the networking event, and I was only able to stay there for like an hour. But at that networking event, I didn't realize who was on that panel. That panel was like Ruben Harris, and it was like all these other CEOs that were attending. But it was like 10 people in the audience, and it was like I was like the only like really person dressed all swaggy, and everyone was like professional. But like I love to go to those because I just love to connect with people. Yeah. And Mr. Jones, like I stayed in, I heard Ruben talk, and I really got captivated by what Ruben was saying because he was talking about podcasting, he was talking about media, but his whole thing was about tech though. But I was like, it just caught my attention, and I told Mr. Jones like, hey, I gotta go because I'm gonna go to this networking thing, but can you give this business card to him and just let him know like I love to connect. So I didn't even know what was gonna happen, but long story short, I'm at Ziggy's, and then I get a text back from Mr. Jones. And he just, this whole paragraph, he's like, hey, man, like, he said he's super receptive to connect with you. He even said to come to the studio, to his studio. And this is in San Francisco. Me not knowing even what Ruben Harris did at the time, I'm just like, I'm all for it. But then later, now, if you guys search up Ruben Harris, he's the CEO, founder of Career Karma. It's like one of the biggest, startups that bridges the gaps between like underrepresented communities to get jobs like engineers and like tech companies. And he's helped like millions of people get jobs into tech. And it's crazy. I think like their seed funding got like $44 million, some crazy number. And I'm probably not even up to date. I'm pretty sure there's more stuff that's happened since then. But shout out to Ruben. And that's where we got connected, I went to Ruben's studio, and he just put me on the whole Silicon Valley thing, like Silicon Valley jobs, the market, the evolution of what's going to happen in the future. Like, people are going to lose jobs in like truck driving. They're going to lose retail jobs. And he was just putting me on like Silicon Valley and like why I should be paying attention. And I was just like mind blown. And then keep in mind, I was coming like I'm editing videos, right? So he's like, you know, you could code. And I was just like, code? Like, I'm not going to do coding, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you're putting people on about coding, but it doesn't fit for me. Like, that's just not me. But he's like, you're video editing, though. Essentially the same way you learn how to video edit, you can also learn how to code. So that's what made me realize, like, okay, like other people, maybe not me, but I know people that can learn this job. So it just made me respect tech a little bit more in that moment. But then I told him about, like, I have a sales background. He's like, oh, they do sales in tech too. So there was that moment where like what Timmy was trying to put me on early hit me, and I was like, damn. So he like, and then I went back to Timmy, and then we eventually like, I took it serious, and I was like, all right, like, what do I got to do? And Timmy was really cool enough to give me a reference to a company called Memory Blue, which is an entry level job for people that are fresh out of college to get into tech, to get those sales roles. But I didn't have a college degree. I dropped out of De Anza because of, like, you know, the entrepreneurship is what I pursued. And I legitimately chose to pursue entrepreneurship consciously. I didn't do it like, oh, you know, fuck it, didn't want to do it. Like, I did it because that's what I chose.
Yeah.
And I'm explaining all this because it's going to lead to the answer. Because so I was at Memory Blue, thanks to Timmy. He gave me a reference. So they actually gave me the interview, and it's like 3 rounds of interviews. So I got to interview like the co-manager, the manager, and then the director. And long story short, like, I got the job. Timmy was a really solid reference, and I didn't have a college degree, and I was like the only one that got in. And I was working with William Osai. Shout out my boy Will Osai. Shout out to my boy Lennon Miller, and shout out to Isaiah Walters, my homies over there, Austin. Those are my good friends.
Whole gang.
Yeah. Shout out. Good friends that I met in the tech space. But that was like my taste of doing sales and tech. And then I was like, all right, I started making, and it sucks because, like, I was making like believe it or not, at the kiosk as a manager, I was making $90,000 like as a manager. But I was also working like 50, 60 hours a week. Like, I was working crazy hours. Grinding. And I was sacrificing holidays. I missed Christmas, you know, I missed Thanksgiving. I did that for like years, you know what I mean? And then when I transitioned into tech, I went from getting paid $90K to getting paid $45K. It was a big pay cut. And then Timmy was like, you got to just go through it because, like, you got to look at it in the long run. Like, once you get the credibility, when you get hired in your next job, you're going to be able to negotiate your salary. So I was just like, all right.
Leverage game.
But he was like putting me on. I didn't like, he was basically teaching me how to see what I couldn't. You know, I'm a visionary, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like all the ideas I have, I stick to them and I pursue to them. But whenever there's someone trying to convince me on something I can't see, it's really hard to convince me. But I respected Timmy, so I was like, all right, I took it. And I thank him for it because I was in that company for about 11 months, and I ended up getting fired because I didn't hit sales goal. And believe it or not, I didn't hit sales goal. But, you know, it's crazy, though, the way that system was brought up, and I learned, like, I was doing really good because a lot of people the turnover rate at the tech sales is, like, really high. So people were getting let go. But I was able to stay there for about 11 months. And then that's when I moved into the office. Literally, like, right before I got fired, I moved into the office. So literally, I got a new bill to pay the office right when I got fired. So I was like, fuck, like, it was just such a weird introduction to, like, that chapter of my life. Yeah. Because then a month later, the pandemic happens. Oh my God. So I got the job, you know what I'm saying? I got the credibility, and then I didn't complete it, but I basically almost did, and then I got let go. I moved into the office. So I'm tripping about the office, not even thinking about the pandemic. And then I had a vacation to Puerto Rico right before, like, literally like March, because it's like between February and March. So when we're in Puerto Rico, because that's like, I didn't have a job. My family was going on a trip. I said, I need to get away. And then when we come back, like, when we're on the plane, like, we hear the news, like, oh, COVID, all this stuff's happening. And then coming back home, it was just like, then pandemic happened. And then that's when everything was so weird. Like, I was only in downtown for like a month, you know what I'm saying? Like, I worked by San Pedro, but like working in Sofa area, like, I was only in it for a month. So I didn't know anyone. I wasn't familiar with all that's around here. And by the way, for the ones that don't know, there's a lot of art and activity and a lot of amazing things happening in SOFA.
This is where we
filmed it.
This is where it all
Yeah.
is. Like
Facts.
the SOFA district is the premier spot
Yep.
in San Jose, if you ask me.
Yep. And there's more to come, I feel. But so yeah, then I was just podcasting. You know, I was just like, I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing, because I was splitting it with some other gentlemen. My shout out to Luis and Mauricio. I was splitting it with them, but they lived in Hollister, and they had different careers. One was in real estate, one was doing like web development.
Even then, Hollister, that's a
long commute.
That's a drive and a half.
So they were kind of
what I'm
like, I don't think it makes sense for us to come anymore, because keep in mind everyone was like locked in and stuff. So I had to take over the whole office, and I was just like, damn, how am I gonna do this? But we just kept going. I got to give a shout out to Local Color, because they did work with a lot of the artists, and they did work with a lot of the businesses that couldn't afford it, that lost their jobs, and they really saved a lot of people's like art career and people's vision to whatever they're doing. Like, I got to give a huge shout out to them, because if it wasn't for them, shit, a lot of the stuff we've created probably wouldn't even happen.
No, and that's coming from my end too. They opened a space that we were able to utilize. Like the whole late night show was shot there, so it was a thing. Speaking of shows, you turn that just podcasting you're doing and just say, look it, we're going all in. Culture Night Market and Any Given Bars, I mean, two of the most successful things that EMLN has debuted, and it's just the beginning for you. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about those origins. Salute to Jay Wells, salute to Monk. Which one comes first? How do they all develop? Because when I tell you, and if you've never been to a Culture Night Market, what are you doing? First of all, go. And if you've never seen an episode of Any Given Bars, right after you watch this, get on the tube. You know what I'm saying? So explain that. Because it is dope. It is really dope.
Pandemic babies, man. Like, all pandemic babies, like, really, everything really started from the pandemic. Backs against the wall. You don't have a job. You have a rent to pay. You know, I had a really complicated living situation. Me and my girlfriend were bouncing between San Jose and Gilroy. So it was just like, not having uncertainty of like how our money's coming in. And keep in mind, I had the tech background, so I was still trying to get a job. So I literally did 100 interviews, bro. Like, I kid you not. I did 100 interviews while all this is happening. Eventually, I actually landed a job. Company called Ping Pong. So that was and it took a year during the pandemic. Like, it wasn't like right in the beginning. It was like a year later. Then I got the job. So between that year,
were planted,
So between that year though, that's when Any Given Bar started. That's when Culture Night Market started, and just continuing the podcast. So I'll start with Culture Night Market. So Culture Night Market, like I said, I was still doing podcasts, so I was just in downtown a lot. The only people at downstairs was me and Patron, and maybe Henry. Like, there wasn't a lot of people downstairs during the shutdowns and everything, obviously, because people weren't allowed, but there were still people making stuff happen. And I was, in that studio by myself or doing content. And then Patron, he's a part of SJ Storyboard. They do like the live art installations. He introduced me to Andy, and then Andy introduced me to Sunny. And Sunny's the property owner for the Nile Lot, which is on 2nd and San Carlos.
Okay.
And she's one of the only minorities that own real estate in this area, because all this area is owned by like a corporation. Like, that's 40% of downtown San Jose. So like the fact that a minority owned that property, I was kind of like, all right, the problems that the minority owned parking lot probably won't have the same problems of the person that's owned by a corporation. So she was struggling on how to maintain tenants, how to pay the bills, and I felt for her. So I was just like, how can we help each other out? So I identified the problem. I knew that there was also entrepreneurs being born. People were starting to sell mama's plates. They're starting to sell, bracelets. They're starting to sell clothes, fashion. I'm just like inspired. I'm like, because you've seen it. Like, I was doing that already. So I was just like inspired seeing people do it. So I felt like there was a challenge that they were facing, which is they didn't have a marketplace. They didn't have a way.
In your mind, God, why sell clothes anymore when I could sell soap and I could sell candles, I could sell food.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that, because that's such a natural progression. And if I'm not mistaken, the first one was Eastridge?
No. So the first one was at the Nile parking lot, which is the one I'm talking about. We did a whole year there. We did them guerrilla style, meaning no permits. We didn't do anything. We obviously did it within the most ethical practice possible, meaning like we weren't legally allowed to do that.
But you were still in talks with the people around you.
Yeah, I knew the property owner. I still got insurance. I still like did it whatever I could to make it as legit as possible. So we did 7 events there. The first event was actually October 18, 2020. And that event brought 200 people. And then the following one brought 300 and then just kept going up. And then I think eventually like 500 was like the most we had. We did 7 events the first year at the Nile lot. And then we got hit like from OCA from downtown San Jose. Were telling us like, hey, you can't do this. There's a procedure, because they saw all the brands on there and they knew Local Color. Then I reached out to Local Color reached out to me. And then I was like, damn, I knew this was going to happen one day because eventually, it was going to raise awareness. And me not understanding the landscape of this area, I was just like, I'm just trying to serve my community.
But like, it's an outlaw promotion at the start of it.
Yeah.
But it's for the right reasons.
Exactly. And that's how I looked at it.
You weren't trying to go in there and like, let's make a couple quick bucks and get out of here.
Nah,
like,
what's crazy, bro, is like, it's hard to have this conversation and still deliver what was really happening because some people still say we're out of the pandemic, but it's like, is anything really the same? Like from them, right?
Good point.
And I think, like I felt the fact that the city and people were kind of like mad that we were doing that upset me. And it was kind of like, I took it personal just because I'm just like, why? Like at the end of the day, like people legitimately don't know how they're going to make money to survive. And you guys are tripping that I'm doing an event. Like I didn't look at it in the same perspective as them. And I think obviously, growing up and just kind of like not being aware of the landscape, I just was just passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? So eventually, I knew that it was going to make more sense to like do it the right way so it can be sustainable. But I did take a break for 6 months though. Like we stopped it. And when we got that notification, we stopped because I was, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to get fined. Like I'm the one that's going to pay the bill of what happens. And I couldn't afford $1,000 fine. Like I wasn't going to pay that. Like it was already like,
if you take that fine, then you take an even bigger setback than if you were to keep going.
And everything that was funded towards the Culture Night Market was like EDD money and like little flips. Like it was literally like, hey, whatever we could scavenge, like let's do that, put it towards the event, make it back by doing cost recovery, asking for $5 donations, vendor spots at a very affordable rate. Because at the end of the day, I was just trying to make sure they made some money. But it worked out. Like we were able to keep rinse and repeat, do it over and over again. And then once the city got involved, I started asking questions. Nice. And I think this is what was the determining factor to why Culture Night Market is what it is, because I was like, I felt like this is the vibe I'm getting, and this is no knock to anyone, but I'm saying like, I felt when they were throwing these like information at me, like, oh, these guidelines, though this, it didn't feel like, hey, fill out this application, whenever you're ready, fill this out, and we'll help you get onboarded. Mm-hmm. It was like, nah, here's this obstacle, here's that obstacle, here's that obstacle, figure it out. That was the vibe I got when we first started Culture Night Market.
If you could get through here, then sure.
Yeah, and it was like exactly. So that's what it felt like. So with that being said, obviously I stopped for 6 months and I started seeing other pop-ups doing it, and they weren't getting regulated. Like they were still doing their thing. So it got kind of like messy because I was just like why are we getting treated different? Mm-hmm. And on top of that, like everyone's doing it in a certain way that I didn't agree with. You doing that event at a park, you're not paying for the park, you're charging people to be at a park. Like that's not ethical in my opinion. But yeah, so
they're doing it in backyards and stuff
like that. And as a human, I naturally built like animosity towards that because I'm just like, yeah, what's going on? But then I decided, I was like, all right, you know what? Let's ask the questions. Let's ask, what's the permit guideline? Like, what's the requirements to set up here? What's the private property permit? Like, I asked all the questions. And I think the fact that I came with that mentality, it shook them. They were like, oh shit, like, and I kept calling, like, sending emails, following up. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then eventually they kind of like had to embrace me because I'm like, I'm going to do this for real. I'm going to actually put my money up for it. And then when I learned...
That same mentality that helped you start a business too.
Exactly.
Like asking the questions and getting the answers.
Exactly. And then When I found out how much it cost to do it, I was shook. I was kind of like, damn, how am I going to do this? You know, like, this is crazy. Like, it's not sustainable. Like, I just started like telling myself, like, why are we doing this? Suicide. Like, why are we doing this? But, and I'm only saying this because it's the truth. Like, this shit is crazy. Santa Clara County is one of the strictest counties.
When you've realized the bill of some of these things, like we were just talking off the air about like investing in mics and stuff like that. Like when you look at what it really costs to start a thing, especially to the level of now you have to get the city involved. It costs more than what people say on the internet. Like, just start a business. Like, you kind of have to think about these things. Everybody.
And it was, so we knew what the number was, and I think it was at a point now where it's like, all right, I have to make a decision. This is the amount of money it's going to cost. Like, I can afford to pay it, but I don't have any other way to recoup. Like, at this point, we got to think strategically. So we increased the cost of the vendor spots, still affordable for the vendors. We required a donation payment at the front door, and we had enough buzz to where we were able to do the math and like what we fundraised, what we recovered through cost recovery, and then incorporating other like donation methods. Like, we were able, when we actually did it the first time legally, we fell short by like $500.
Wow.
But just to give you context, like it would probably be like somewhere between $4,000 to $5,000 to do everything with the permits and everything. Ooh. So the fact that we got close to it was super like motivating for me, because I was like, dog, when we first saw this number, we were so intimidated. Look, we're only $500 away from that. Let's run it back again. And then we did it again. And the next thing you know, I'm like getting familiar with this territory now. Like, all right, like we can afford to pay this back. Let's do it again. We never really profited, right? Like, not until year 3. Like, we didn't profit until year 3. Like, we still made revenue, but pay enough cost and then maybe lose some. But we were able to make it back by other means, like selling merch or having grants that we applied for and stuff like that. And then it goes into this other chapter. But yeah, just to answer your question.
And I mean, we're talking East Ridge Mall, which
and that hasn't even happened yet. That's the crazy part.
That hasn't even happened in the story. But to give people context of how far it came from that story is we're talking East Ridge Mall, literally right in front of people, right across from the Chili's. So it's like everybody can just pull up to it, have themselves a good time. Oak Ridge, that one was really dope. That one was, to have that one on the South, it was really amazing.
It had to happen on the South.
Had to happen.
It had to happen.
Then we're talking PayPal Park, which I was saying to you, I was having a drink at a game, and to see the advertisement for it pop up, I was like, that's beautiful. To come where we come from and to see that. Did you have the vision when you started it that it can go to those places, or did you always just see that this can stay in like one parking lot, essentially?
So since I knew it was producing cash flow, I knew that we can keep doing it and like still keep going the first year. But once we got to a point where like we completed the first year and we wanted to start like getting more organized, we wanted to plan the year. So we actually made the decision to plan dates a year in advance. And then that's when I feel like things shifted, and I was like, all right, this demand has gotten real serious. Like, we really need to take this into consideration of like creating a foundation or creating a business or something. And then and then we decided to make it into a business, and I think that was the smartest decision we could have ever made, because now it allowed us to to get a fiscal sponsor with Low Color. Low Color helps us apply for grants, and we've been awarded grants for all the activations we've done. Nice. And that's opened doors for us to invest into equipment, into a staff, into permits, rentals. Like, it's really expensive to do these consistently. So the fact that I was put on game on that avenue because of my community, it opened more doors for me and what we were trying to do with Culture Night Market and our team. So I think, sorry, I lost track of the question. I'm just trying to follow the timeline.
No, you're good. First of all, salute to the team that he does have at Culture Night Market. I mean, it's a lot of people that a lot of new people. It's such a great thing. But you were saying kind of how it's grown into such a business that because of your partners and because of yourself and your hard work and almost not taking no for an answer, you were able to put it in places that you almost didn't see possible.
Yes.
So now, to piggyback off that, Any Given Bars.
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, every rapper who is a rapper in the city of San Jose and Bay Area wants to either be on the show, has been on the show.
Yeah.
I know as a fan of rap and as a person who's tried to really always make sure it is at the forefront of this city, I am a firm believer in any given bars and a fan of it. Now let's get into that because, God, I'm going to keep putting that flag up any given bar.
Okay, sorry. I remember now what I was going to say.
No,
let me finish what I was saying with the CNM because I feel like it's relevant to the story because I want to go in the timeline of the pandemic.
I know how to stall
so when we got that, like when we transitioned into the foundation and we got put on game through Low Color about grants and how to actually sustain it, then that's when like our brand recognition started come into play, and also me doing cold outreach. So I started taking the skills I learned in the tech and put it in the Culture Night Market. So I started doing cold calls, and the only reason I had to do that is because San Jose has this ridiculous law where you can't do an event at a private property more than 5 times within a span of like 4 to 5 months, and that forced us to become a hybrid model business.
What?
So basically, we were doing the Culture Night Market at the Nile lot, right? We did it 5 times, and then OCA hit me up. We're like, hey, you can't do the event no more. And keep in mind, they weren't saying you got to take it somewhere else. They were like, you can't do the event no more. It goes back to what I was saying. Like, I felt like the obstacles were kept.
Yeah.
So they were telling me, you can't do the event no more. I'm like, why not? And they said, because we have this policy, it's a zoning law where like you have an event here for X amount of times, you can't do it there. And so I just kind of took that like, so what am I supposed to do? What are these vendors supposed to do like that are reliant on this income? Like, you want me to tell them you can't come make money no more because of this? So, because I always kept doing that to them because I wanted to apply pressure to them because I wanted them to understand how hard it was for me as a new business owner trying to bring a business into San Jose, why you're making it harder. Like, they're making it harder during a time that we've never experienced. Yeah. So that's you know where I'm coming from. Why I started taking things personal. I was like, what's going on? So long story short, I don't take no for an answer. I started doing cold calls, started reaching out to other venues, and that's when I called PayPal. Because I actually called them because I was like, I know I can't afford the stadium. I know goddamn well Google pays like racks for this shit. But I'm going to call anyways because I'm just going to see, like, I want them to tell me no. You know what I'm saying? So I called this number I found on Google, and I got in contact with some marketing person. I told them what I do, what we did, what we've already done, and what we're trying to do. And she basically kind of deterred me professionally. She's saying like, oh, you know, I don't think this will work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, just out of curiosity, like, how much would it cost? And she told me like 10 grand as I anticipated, right? But I was like, oh, okay, well, I do appreciate you taking the time, you know, to learn about what we're doing. But but based on that call, she was like, based on your mission statement and like what you guys are doing for the community, I think there could be some area of opportunity to connect you with someone on our team because they're working on this support our city campaign because PayPal had just took over the Avaya Stadium and now it's PayPal Park. So they're going through this transition. So they just rolled out this new campaign called Support Our City campaign where they pay homage to all these small businesses.
And for those who don't know, that has been a big component in bigging up a lot of the photographers in the San Jose. A lot of artists who were just doing random graffiti work have gotten opportunities to work. Salute to even clothing lines like Jubo. Like a lot of people have gotten this opportunity. So salute to the Earthquakes and PayPal for even making this a thing.
Yeah, no, they definitely bridged the gap, I feel like, the last couple of years with a lot of different influences, communities, organizations in San Jose. So definitely a lot of respect to the Earthquakes and PayPal. So yeah, I called them. He put me in connection with this guy named Rahul, who is no longer with the organization, but at that time he played a role on like the marketing team. So I met with him and I came with my folder. I came like, all right, let me try to sell this guy on the whole thing. Sat down with him. Long story short, I came a little too over prepared. He was just kind of chill. He was just like, hey man, like, you don't need to do all this. Like, let me hear you out. You know what I'm saying? Just be human with me. I was like, all right, bet. So started talking about everything. And long story short, he was like, oh, I really think this is dope. I really like what you guys do. He was sold on us as like people. Because like what we do and how passionate we are. And then long story short, that was a year before we actually did the event. So look, it took a whole year for that pipeline to build up to that point where we did the event. So I'm just saying, like, for all of the events that people see, like, they see the event, they see that it happened, but they don't realize how long it took for it to happen. So after like 6 meetings with the Earthquakes, I did this like panel where I'm on a TV and then they're like all the executives on the table and I'm basically selling them the event. Long story short, then it came to them actually agreeing to it, and I was like, oh, okay, bet, like this is exciting. But then I talked to Timmy about it, and he was giving me a lot of business advice, and he's all about like negotiations and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So he was putting me on game on like how to upsell and like how to bring value. So originally I didn't even know how much our event was worth. So I initially was like, you know, whatever we could get, you know what I mean? But I think, long story short, we were able to get a $40,000 sponsorship for them to activate 4 event series for the 2021 season.
Oh, nice.
So that covered everything. That covered entertainment, that covered operations, that covered staff. So then it felt really good. This was like the really first feeling where I'm like, actually paying people for what they're worth, and it feels good because like when you're doing everything kind of like out of your pocket and you're just kind of nibbling whatever you can, you're not able to provide that to people, and you want to but you can't. So when it got to that point, it was like a huge milestone, bro. It just shifted the mentality. When we did that, I was like, dude, if we can do this with them, who else would be gravitating to it? So then that's when I called Eastridge and then Oak Ridge and then the list goes on.
To let everybody know how serious he was about, like, no, these ones at PayPal, he was putting people on. Content Magazine profiled artist Forever Records was out there performing, and we're talking, it was beautiful. Yep. Like, you had an amazing crowd who came there in such a positive fashion. Yep. Like, they didn't come, like, usually, especially nowadays, people go to shows and it's like the party first and kind of people are performing around the party.
Yep.
You made it to where it was like, whether you went there to go support a brand, support yourself, support the business itself.
Go to the bar, get a drink.
Go to the bar and get a drink. Or even go to support an artist.
Yeah.
Everybody was gathered around.
Yeah,
and
they was in.
It was such a great environment that you and that whole team curated.
Yeah.
You curated. How do you choose a vendor?
Yeah.
Like, how does that enter your mind? Because, I mean, every single business I went to, I was like, I'm going to go broke. I'm going to spend. There's something I want to buy here.
A little something for everyone.
So
I think that was, so when I was vending, like, you know, selling urban streetwear, I didn't have a lot of options like to go to myself in San Jose. Like, there was times before where I legitimately applied to be a vendor and they denied me because I wasn't a fit, quote unquote. So I started going to like Oakland and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuck with me. So when I did the events and I had the opportunity to deny and approve anyone, I just opened the door for whoever. Obviously, when I had them apply, I asked them if they had a sole proprietor, if they had a permit. But if they didn't, I didn't push them away. I just gave them an option that we can follow up with them to help them get that figured out. Because it's one thing to just give someone like tell someone no and not give them an alternative. I hate when people are like, oh, that's not gonna work. All right, well, give me a solution. Like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what my mentality was, like, here, this won't work, but let me give you the solution. So to answer your question though, it's open application. Anyone can apply. If it's a non-food vendor, it's really easy to get onboarded. If you're a food vendor, you are required to have like permits, but we can apply for a 1-day permit, which is a lot manageable. But the county is very strict. So now that we work with like these organizations like OCA and the city of San Jose and the county.
And quick plug, where can they apply for any of this?
Yeah, so if they go on culturenightmarket.com, you go on our Instagram, you go on Twitter, culturenightmarket, MKT. I've been trying to figure out the Twitter headline and the Abby, whatever. So yeah, they can apply on there.
Okay. And now let's get into Any Given Bar.
Yes. Now it's time for the Any Given Bar.
Because the fact that all this comes from a pandemic.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
It's just insane, because even hearing that story, I know someone's thinking, how did that one thing start? No, he started 2 things, ladies and gentlemen. So now get into this.
So
this is
Any Given Bar is November 2020. So it's literally the month after. October, November. Yes, the month after. So Jay Wells and I did a podcast when I was working at Memory Blue like a year before. So I had just met Jay Wells for the first time. And we were really cool with each other. We got familiar. I gave a lot of love to him. He gave a lot of love to me. And then he followed up with me out of respect. Well, like, he sees what I'm doing. He told me, he's like, hey, I got this idea. I really want to like make it come to life. I feel like with someone like you, I can make it happen. So he came to the office. He told me about the concept of like a freestyle show. And that's what it was. We didn't even have any given bars or anything like that. It wasn't until like I told him, all right, let me see if we can set something up. I talked to Color if we can film the first taping at the office, and they agreed. Shout out to them again. And then so then we did the very first taping of Any Given Bars in November, and we had City Sean as the first artist. We had Deadstock. We have Swift Jiggy. We had Katie the Goer. Young Wapo and Stretch and Moses and Jarvis goes by King, I believe. And then I feel like that's everyone. I might be forgetting some. If I forgot, I'm sorry. Season 1, we filmed it all there one time, and it was like our first time doing it. So I didn't even know if we were doing it correctly, you know. So we did it, and thankfully we had the focus right, so we were able to record everything and sync it all together. It wasn't until we did it in a live format I realized that we have to do it completely different. Like I fucked up the whole season basically. Yeah. Season 2, we fucked it all up. But season 1, it all happened November 2020, and Jay Wells also told me about Monk, and that's my first time getting connected with Monk. And I already knew who Monk was, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but we just didn't have mutuals until that moment. And then it just worked out perfectly because I see Jay Wells and Young Monk as like media personalities. Like these are stars, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, they just need the foundation around them to really get the audience. And the thing that we were really emphasizing is that we wanted to make a hip hop show, but if you pay attention to a lot of the hip hop shows, a lot of them don't have like their own face. They don't have their own media personality. Yeah. Like they just have someone with a mic or it's hanging or whatever. I know that's everyone's favorite, right? The hanging mic. The hanging mic.
When did that become a thing?
It's for surely a thing now. But no knock on it. It's cool.
And by the way, I would like to selfishly take credit for rapping on the MLN podcast, because the first one was Flammy Marciano on the podcast rapping over Uchiwali.
That's true.
But I just had to plug that in there. But nah, you guys had the live format, and like you said, you did something that wasn't really happening other than maybe Funk Flex. There's not really a face to these freestyles. And for people who don't know, Any Given Bars, these rappers, they get interviewed, they have a freestyle segment, and it's the best showcase right now for artists in our area. And you are, for people who don't know anything about BQ, hip-hop fanatic, like had every CD growing up basically.
I still got all those papers.
Like everything is hip-hop to his core on top of all the other music he likes. So you honestly were aware of, you know, this type of hip hop platform. But what made you say, hey, let's put these two as the face because they are great and they make the artist feel so comfortable? Like what made you say, let me take a step back and I become more of the behind the scenes role?
It goes back to EMLN. Like I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to be in the hip hop industry. I knew I wanted it, but I didn't want to be a rapper. Like, that was really it. I didn't want to be a rapper. Like everyone was trying to be a rapper. Like I'm good. Like I know how it goes. You know, if especially if you're not good. You know, but. It was really that, you know, I knew that Jay Wells and Monk were, like I said, they were amazing personalities. I knew they could do it. They have a huge influence. And then the structure, I feel like after doing Culture Night Market, I'm dealing with structure. So I'm just like, let me help, you know, put the pieces that we need, like the videographer, the audio engineer, the sponsors, whatever. And, you know, we did our first taping and then we decided to do it again. We were like deciding that, all right, we're doing, and we were doing batch content. That's what they call it now. We were doing batch content before it was called batch content because Jay Wells was like really limited with his schedule. So we were like, all right, let's just knock the whole season out in one day. So we basically brought all the artists in one session. Interesting. And what made it really dope is that you create this competitive atmosphere naturally. And now it's like people are kind of like, it's hard to explain. It's like a showcase almost. Like you're competing with someone. I'm trying to give like an analogy.
Me and Gift, and Alden, we all kind of described it as like AAU, like AAU basketball. Yeah. For those who don't know, it's like every summer the people who really care about basketball,
all come into the same place.
Yes. And either they're on a team or you're facing.
And someone's watching. Everyone's watching.
Someone's watching.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like.
That's exactly what it felt like. Yeah.
When you go there, at least when Gift went, there were like Iced Out Flames was there and Randy was there. Like everybody was there, and it was like, is this like a rap camp?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like it felt like just like.
That was the coolest part though for me. Like I really enjoyed seeing people take this shit for real, because my biggest critique with San Jose hip hop was like everyone is complacent. Like everyone's they're cool with where they're cool being the hood star. Like my thing is like, why aren't we going beyond that?
Like us coming from a football background. In high school, there were those preseason camps where it'd be Oak Grove.
Oh, the jamborees.
The jamboree.
The jamboree going crazy.
And that's what it felt like, because like you said, there's a sense of complacency in rap where not only am I cool being the hood star, I'm cool with just the club giving me 15 minutes and like $300.
Yeah.
That's what we were almost becoming conditioned to like.
Yeah, it was a lot of that.
And you were saying, hey, I'm not paying you guys anything, but if you come here, it's a place that's actually celebrating you instead of tolerating you.
Yeah.
And did you know it was going to, like, people have collaborated because they met each other.
Oh, yeah, I noticed.
Like,
I love the fact that we've, like, and it's just,
it's like
the whole ecosystem, like EMLN, Culture Night Market, and any given bars.
Do you feel like you're providing that?
Yeah,
in a sense,
for sure. I feel like we're bridging a lot of people together, and at the end of the day, whether they work with me or not, like, it's cool. Work with me, awesome. If not, I still wish people the best. I want them to succeed, and I feel like a lot of the success I have gotten has been through collaboration, just meeting different people that have the same level of frequency I have. You know, I'm thinking about doing this shit, and they want to do the same thing. Let's do it. So the fact that we do that through Culture Night Market, any given bar, is just really dope. And I've seen a lot of it from, you know, people working with the San Jose Earthquakes, you know, from people doing, you know, features with each other, people doing producing, people are mixing other people's stuff. Like, it's really cool. To answer your question, it's really dope.
Okay. And one of my final questions before we get out of here is, there is a certain value that you've provided not only amongst yourself, but the EMLN brand. Honestly, I see the stars for you. Like, I see, you know, those 4 letters are going to be on the side of a building one day. Do you?
Hope so, shit.
Oh, man, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Hell, he's damn near taking all the downstairs.
Yeah. I need a building.
But I will say this. Do you have, and it doesn't have to be in the long term, but as far as right now, like, do you see the short term? What do you see for EMLN, at least in that sense? Because I could see grandiose things for you from a mile away, but that starts somewhere, and you've already had a great starting point. Yeah. Where does the ball keep rolling for you?
I think it's, you know, I have a timeline. You know, I always told myself this is a 10-year goal. So, like, I started in 2015. I got 2 more years. So my mentality is, like, you know, I want to insert myself in the industry, leave my mark as an event producer, as a media producer, as an individual that just bridges gaps and try to bring value to other people. But I definitely see us doing more events, like, you know, more night markets. We just started FeastMode, which is a new food event, which is like a similar concept, but it's all food vendors.
I saw it looks great.
Delicious.
It looks great.
And then also we have I'm trying to insert myself into the concert scene next year. Like, I really want to host concerts, and maybe give a San Jose a hip hop concert. That's something I really want to. That's one of my goals. And as far as EMLN goes, like, I really want to do more. I want to create the structure that I've been trying to pursue my entire time. Like, how am I going to make this sustainable? Like, I think when it comes to the media side, and this is me speaking as a person that's still new to it, like, I'm still trying to figure out how people make money off of media. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I know there's sponsors. I know there's people that pay for production work.
Oh, no, you and me, we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, like, I think
that's been my life, like, is trying to make money off of media and looking at every possible value of it. So I know where you're coming from. It's the mystery of all mysteries.
and you know, I've had some really, really interesting projects I've been a part of through EMLN that made me see the potential that I can go.
Yeah.
It didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and I don't even know if I should talk about it because it's not gonna be released. I literally created a whole show that's not getting released no more. But we had a sponsor, and they paid for the production. Like, they paid for everything. That was my first time. It was like a milestone moment. Like, for culturenightmarket, when we did first 500 people, like, that felt like, dude, we did it, right?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like with that media project. Even though it didn't work out, it gave me that feeling like, oh shit, like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Like, that's the direction we're supposed to be going. But to answer your point, like, I want to produce more, like, film. Like, I want to do, like, I don't know, I have this itch in me, like, I want to do acting. Like, I want to do crazy shit in media. Like, I want to go all in. But I think it's just, I don't know, man. To answer your question, like, it's really, I want to insert myself in the industry through EMLN. I want to continue to grow Any Given Bars because I feel like that brand alone has its own potential.
It's got legs now.
Yeah, it's got legs, and it's jogging right now.
Yeah,
it's jogging up. It's jogging up Communication Hills right now. Like, that motherfucker running. But yeah, so I see a lot of good things, but I'd be lying to you if I said I know exactly where we're going. Because I see that we've created dope things, but they took different turns, you know. But 2 more years though, so I got to make it happen.
Okay.
Yep.
And little rapid fire segment. I got 3 questions.
Yeah. Yep.
Give them to me.
Sure.
What is your go-to meal? What is the go-to meal for Brandon Quintanilla?
Oh man, lately, shit, your boy's been eating lately, so I could definitely give you some options here.
Oh, he's on his food because he just told you it's FeastMode.
I mean, bro, for the longest, I was the La Costa advocate forever.
Because it's real South.
I was the La Costa advocate forever, you know. But I did get put on Metro Balderas, bro, and I don't know if I could ever go back. It's crazy because it's fire.
Tell the people where that's at. You know,
it's on Willow. It's on Willow.
No gatekeeping.
They got a couple spots on Willow. They got a food truck, and they have another one in Almaden. Gas. Them burritos. It's the beans. They refried the beans, so it's gas.
Okay.
It makes a difference.
Okay. When you are in your most focus, when you are in straight tunnel vision,
yeah.
What music are you listening to?
Nipsey, Rex Live Raj, La Russell, Nas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just say those for now.
And when you get a break to yourself, when you get a moment of clarity, what are you doing?
Smoking that loud, probably. You know, just I like to be just with my family and just, you know, I got my dog, so he's like my little son. Just kicking it with my family, with my dog.
He's a dog parent.
I like to just be at peace, you know, try to be away from shit sometimes. I mean, I feel like that's helped me a lot though. You know, mental health is a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like having boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, I was really bad with that before. I know you know that. I think you and I worked a 24-hour day before.
No, we worked almost a full 48. We did not sleep.
And that was unhealthy. But we did it though because we loved it, and I think it was okay for us to do it at a young age because we could do that, right? But now as we get older, I'm about to push 30 next year, so I'm like, you know, I try to have boundaries and try to like just take some time when I can. I haven't took a vacation yet, but it's gonna come soon.
And then finally, last but not least, I know the 16-year-old version of you. You know the 16-year-old version of me.
Yeah.
What would 28?
29.
29?
I just
okay.
turned 29, yeah.
See, yeah, I forgot. He had that,
I was a year older.
He had that year gap on everybody.
I used to get so much shit for that, bro.
You know what I'm saying? I forgot about that. 29. What would you say to the 16-year-old version of yourself?
Oh, man, you don't even know. I'm just going to say, you don't even know. That's it. Because, like, I was trying to go to the U, bro. Like I said, like I wasn't even thinking about any of this stuff. Like,
that's why I said I know the version. I know that man had the football dreams, and he was. Yeah. If you would have asked him, he was gonna go. Like he would be in the league now. Yeah, you would be there. And so to see, that's why I had to ask what would he say to that person? So
yeah, no, I mean it's funny. Someone watching this probably like, "Hey, bro, 5'7". What are you gonna do in the league?" But I mean, hey, Darren Sproles 5'6", man.
He was faster than a lot of dudes. I'll say that he was faster.
But I think what it was though was the culture that we grew up at Oak Grove. Like everyone was proud to be a part of that football team. People were proud to be at a public school that competed against private schools. It was just like a very unique like atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? San Jose is one of those diverse cultures, but I feel like Oak Grove and the Southside community, it had a very unique like upbringing. You know what I'm saying? Like if you know people from the East Side, they have their upbringing and they have their trials and tribulations they dealt with, the things that they loved, a part of that culture. But Southside had that culture too, in a different way. And like mine was like going to the Pop Warner practices in the back. Like there was thousands of people there. Now it's a ghost town and it's sad, but like, you know, this is just how life is. Things change.
Like it's around this time of year where, like, shoot, in a couple hours, we should be seeing kids in the red helmets. Yeah, and if we went there right now,
sometimes they show up early, waiting with their bag, their big ass red bag on the floor.
And if we went there now, like, we would only see the Oak Grove football team, like the high school team. And so I 100% get what you're saying.
When I go back there, I see it still. Like I kind of like I visualize it. I'm like, damn, I remember seeing the Renegades, the Regulators, the Riders, like all the kids, the cheerleaders. Like it was just. That's the community I grew up on, and not a lot of people know about it, and I want to make sure that that story is still told in different formats, from music to events to bringing people together to content, and that's why I feel like it's just, we can never forget who we are, you know what I'm saying, where we come from.
Well, that's exactly why you had to be my first episode, man, because that is a story I'm trying to tell as well, because like you said, very few come from it, but the ones who do, we romanticize it because it built us. Yeah. And I love what it's built in you, and I can't wait to see more.
Likewise with you too, man.
Hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Shit. I can't wait to see more of the future for you, man, and thank you for coming here and telling your story. And for those, you know, get your plug off, you know what I'm saying? Because he's got a lot right here. So tell the people what you got, and you know what I'm saying? Culture Night Market, any given bars. Tell them where to get it, where to find it, and everything else.
All right, I'm gonna give the plugins because the plugins are real easy. Oh yeah. But before I go into that, I definitely want to take a moment to say that I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
Because I've always respected you. Like, I always recognized that you were, like, really passionate. And I don't know a lot of passionate people, like, on my level of fucking passion. And I've always said that you were that person.
Yeah, no, he has.
No, straight up.
And salute to the garage.
The lab.
The lab where we come from. Salute to the family that
Shout out to the Williams family. God, real shit. Shout out my boy Noski, my brother.
Noski, God, that whole family, they let us be in there. And when I tell you, we were just trying everything, sitting in that room at 11 p.m. till 4 a.m. some nights, just being like, well, what if we did this show, and what if we did this, and if we sold the clothes here, and like we had a whole car wash method and everything. Bro, like
in macro perspective, what I look at that is like, that's community. Like those same parents that let us run that operation at their house, like they also gave us rides to our games at Pop Warner, and like they used to host the barbecues, or like, you know what I'm saying, pick us up to do fun stuff. Like, it goes back to community at the end of the day. Like, and I realized that that's what we had, and it was really special. We still have community, but it's just, you know, it's different now.
BQ during football season literally used to let people come over to the house and watch games and play. Oh, it used to go crazy. So he is the epitome of everything he's saying. So plug that community that you're talking about right in the camera.
Culture Night Market, Culture Night Market, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. FeastMode, SJ, new event rolling out September 29th, the next event, October 13th and October 27th before the end of the year. Make sure you guys slide by. Make sure you come in hungry. Any given bars, all one word. You can follow the page, subscribe on the YouTube channel, EMLN exclusive. We're dropping season 12 this Friday, tomorrow. Woo! Those are 6 new episodes coming out, and we're doing a production in LA next weekend.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah. Man, you know who I am, Trizzy E Baby. He's BQ. This is the Content Magazine podcast. Thank you.
Peace.
That was fire. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the South Bay creatives. This episode's music is 408 by Jack Pavlina. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Jack Pavlina Music.